The courtroom buzzed with hushed whispers as a skinny 17-year-old boy walked to the defendant's table, alone. No lawyer, no parent by his side. The seasoned judge, known for his sharp tongue and impatience, smirked at the sight. To him, this was another misguided teen destined to fail. The bailiff struggled to hide a grin, and even the opposing attorney leaned back, already tasting an easy victory. But behind the boy's nervous eyes burned a quiet fire, a mind sharper than anyone in that room suspected. Within the hour, the judge would be forced to swallow his own ridicule, and the world would witness a courtroom twist no one saw coming. Malik Johnson had always been underestimated. Growing up in a small Midwestern town, he was no stranger to being dismissed because of his race and age. His teachers often assumed he was a troublemaker before he even opened his mouth. His classmates whispered when he scored higher than them on exams. But Malik's quiet resilience masked a brilliant intellect and an obsession with the law. From the age of 12, Malik devoured law books borrowed from a dusty public library. He memorized courtroom procedures the way other kids memorized basketball stats. His mother, a nurse working double shifts, encouraged his curiosity but worried about the prejudice he'd face in a world that too often judged by skin color first and ability second. One cold autumn afternoon, Malik was falsely accused of vandalizing a local store, a store where he had been a regular customer for years. Security footage was grainy, and a biased store manager insisted the kid in the hoodie had to be him. Instead of pleading guilty to a misdemeanor he didn't commit, Malik did something no one expected. He filed the paperwork to represent himself. The decision stunned his small community. Some neighbors called him reckless. Others whispered that a black teenager trying to outsmart a courtroom was asking for humiliation. But Malik prepared relentlessly, studying legal precedents late into the night. As the court date approached, he rehearsed arguments, crafted questions, and anticipated every possible counterpoint. The stakes weren't just about clearing his name. It was about proving that intelligence, preparation, and courage could shatter stereotypes, even in the most intimidating room in town. The morning of the trial, a crisp wind swept across the courthouse steps. Malik wore a second-hand suit slightly too big for his lean frame, but his posture was upright, every movement deliberate. Inside, the courtroom carried an air of quiet hostility. The store manager sat smugly with his lawyer, confident that a teenager couldn't possibly mount a serious defense. Judge Harold Whitmore, a man with decades on the bench, adjusted his glasses and eyed Malik with open skepticism. "Are you sure you wish to proceed without counsel?" he asked flatly, his tone laced with the faintest trace of mockery. Malik nodded, steady but polite. The judge raised an eyebrow and leaned back, making a note that this would be an educational hearing, code for an easy dismissal against the boy. From the outset, the prosecution painted Malik as a delinquent. They spoke of his suspicious presence near the store, his pattern of behavior based on nothing more than his race and the hoodie he wore. Each word dripped with coded language that barely hid the bias underneath. Malik listened without flinching, jotting notes with a calm precision that belied his age. When it was his turn, Malik rose and approached the bench with quiet confidence. He began by challenging the reliability of the grainy security footage, citing legal precedents about the burden of proof and chain of custody. His voice, steady, articulate, and backed by meticulous research, caught the judge off guard. Courtroom staff exchanged glances. This was no ordinary teenager fumbling through a defense. Next, Malik questioned the store manager's testimony, highlighting inconsistencies in the timeline and pointing out that the manager's initial report mentioned a suspect significantly taller than Malik. He introduced a signed receipt proving he was across town at the time of the incident, obtained by cleverly subpoenaing a cafe where he'd purchased a hot chocolate that evening. Each piece of evidence landed like a hammer against the prosecution's shaky narrative. The opposing attorney scrambled, objecting repeatedly, but Malik countered each objection with precise references to legal codes he had memorized. The judge leaned forward, curiosity replacing condescension. As the tension built, spectators began to sense that the balance of power was shifting. What began as a predictable case of a naive kid facing authority had turned into a masterclass in legal reasoning. Malik's calm, methodical dismantling of the prosecution's case wasn't just a fight for his own freedom. It was a quiet indictment of the racial biases that had put him there in the first place. By midday, the courtroom's atmosphere had transformed. Gone was the patronizing smirk from Judge Whitmore. In its place was an expression of reluctant admiration. The prosecution's closing argument was thin, their earlier confidence shattered by Malik's relentless logic. When Malik delivered his final statement, the room fell silent. He spoke not only of the evidence but of the deeper issue, the danger of assumptions. "Your Honor," he said, his voice steady but charged with emotion, "if I looked different, dressed different, or came from a different family, would we even be here? Evidence should matter more than prejudice. Facts should outweigh fear." The words hung in the air like a challenge to everyone present. Even the judge seemed momentarily speechless. After a tense pause, Judge Whitmore cleared his throat and delivered the verdict, not guilty. He acknowledged the weaknesses in the prosecution's case and commended Malik for his preparation and composure. As the gavel struck, a collective exhale swept through the gallery. The opposing attorney avoided eye contact. The store manager's confidence crumbled into quiet embarrassment. Malik, still composed, simply gathered his papers and offered a respectful nod to the court. But the real victory wasn't just the dismissal of charges. It was the undeniable proof that intelligence, preparation, and truth could pierce even the thickest fog of prejudice. News of the case spread beyond the small town within days. Local papers ran headlines about the teen who outsmarted the court, but Malik saw it differently. To him, it wasn't about outsmarting anyone. It was about standing his ground against a system that too often dismissed people who looked like him. Letters poured in from parents, students, and even aspiring law students who saw in Malik a symbol of courage and possibility. Judge Whitmore, once the embodiment of cold authority, requested a private word after the trial. He admitted he had misjudged Malik from the start and encouraged him to consider a career in law. Malik thanked him but left with a quiet understanding. Respect earned through performance was powerful, but it should never have been withheld in the first place. Malik went on to attend college on a scholarship, eventually enrolling in law school. His case became a cautionary tale for courtrooms across the region, a reminder that brilliance knows no age or color, and that bias can blind even those sworn to uphold justice. As you reflect on Malik's journey, ask yourself, how many stories like his are overlooked because assumptions drown out evidence? How many brilliant minds are underestimated before they're even given a chance? The next time you encounter someone society is quick to dismiss, remember Malik Johnson, the teenager who walked into a courtroom alone and left not just vindicated, but victorious, proving that truth, when wielded with courage, is unstoppable.